Welcome back to Bass Fishing Declassified. Today, in this video, Matt Steffen's going to go over the bump and run technique that he uses for chatterbaits. Miles Berghoff's going to go over trailers and picking out trailers for the chatterbait. And then Randy Blockett is going to go over color selection for you picking out your chatterbait in this early springtime period.
A vibrating jig is going to be one of your best options during the springtime. We all know that bass start to head shallow for their spawning process. They're going to be shallow for several months from the pre-spawn into the spawn into the post-spawn period. And anytime you're talking about fishing shallow water, your vibrating jigs are going to be a big player. They catch a lot of fish and they give you a true shot at catching a giant pre-spawn female. Now the key here, guys, is anytime you're using it, I highly recommend not just fishing this straight back to the boat, meaning just have it come straight back in where it's just vibrating away like a crankbait. The reason I say that is every time you can get this blade to stop, what's going to happen is you're going to have water displacement that changes and the bait's going to quickly dart to one side or the other before the blade catches and starts vibrating again. That skip, when the bait goes from just a constant vibration to a dart to one side or the other, is what is going to trigger the strikes. That's what generates the reaction strikes that are so valuable anytime you're fishing a vibrating jig. The best way to do that is to come in contact with objects. If you're fishing around docks, hit the dock post. If you're fishing around grass, get it buried in the grass so you can rip it out. Maybe you're fishing through pad stems. Deflect off the pad stems. It really is that easy. And the reason for that is when you're retrieving it, if it hits that dock post, it stops the blade and that bait will dart away from it, which creates that quick, fast action that makes the fish think it's trying to get away from them. So anytime you're fishing this bait in the springtime, you want to come in contact with objects. Now, if you're fishing deeper water, or you're fishing suspended fish and you can't get those fish, or there's nothing to necessarily bump off of to create that reaction strike, that's where you just need to change the speed of your retrieve, meaning give the rod tip a quick pop. Maybe you give your reel handle a quick turn, and what that'll do is that'll create the same sort of irregular darting motion. Now, one other point I want to point out with this is anytime you're choosing a trailer, I highly recommend choosing a straight-tailed trailer like this Powerbait Power Stinger. The reason for that is it's not going to create much drag on the bait. If you're throwing a boot tail or you're throwing some sort of craw flapper, those flappers create drag. They create drag, and therefore they limit how far that bait's going to dart side to side. It's almost like putting the brakes on your bait, and that's not what you want. You want a fast, quick, erratic darting motion, and therefore your trailer, in my opinion, is a huge factor in any time you're fishing a vibrating jig around cover where you're trying to deflect off objects, because you want it to deflect and dart as far away as possible. That creates that really good reaction strike possibility. And I'll tell you, as long as you're beating these baits up, you're bumping off cover, you're going to increase the number of bites that you get. And that bump and run, as I like to call it, is what is going to give you your best shot at catching the biggest fish around. Most of the time, the true giants, the biggest females in that area, are so accustomed to everything and so wary that the only way you can get them to bite is to get that reaction strike. And if you can get this in front of their face and get it to dart right in front of them, that's when they're going to eat it. So I assure you guys, give the bump and run a try. Make sure you're beating up your vibrating jigs into the cover that's in the area that you're fishing, and you will get more bites.
All right, guys, so many of you already know that one of my favorite baits year-round is a chatterbait, just like this Jackhammer here. Now, these baits are super versatile, so again, you can fish it year-round, but one of the best time periods to be throwing a chatterbait where it really shines as far as numbers of fish and also quality of fish is going to be this February, March, pre-spawn time period for most of the year. That's when a chatterbait really shines on a lot of these different lakes. Now, the great thing about a chatterbait is you can mix and match the different trailers to accomplish different actions, different profiles, different colors, and that's also one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make this time of year is using the wrong style trailer for early season fishing. So Really, to break it down, make it simple, I've got two different trailers that I like to use probably 95% of the time. The first one is kind of a boot style swim bait trailer. Okay, this trailer by itself has a lot of inherent action. What I mean by that is if I was to take it off of the chatterbait and put it on a swim bait head, it would have a lot of swimming action all by itself. You don't need the blade, you know, kicking back and forth to create the action. So this trailer actually adds additional action to this whole profile and is really good for warmer water situations. But I see a lot of people just use a swim bait trailer for all different situations. The other trailer that I like to use is what I call kind of a do-nothing type trailer, okay? So this trailer, or a jointed style trailer, this trailer, as you can see, is a very streamlined profile, doesn't have a cut style tail or a boot style tail. It does have these joints on there, so it has a lot of freedom of movement, but by itself, if you were to put this on a trailer or on a jig head, it wouldn't have any inherent action by itself. So even though it has a lot of nice subtle action to it with the chatterbait blade, you know, creating a lot of vibration and side-to-side movement, it's not going to have a lot of action on itself. And why that's important is during this time of year, my two favorite retrieves to use with a chatterbait is number one, a yo-yo technique, where I'm lifting the chatterbait and letting it fall on a semi-slack line, or a stop and go retrieve where I'm retrieving it normal and then I pause and let it fall. And what happens is with a you know, boot style chatterbait trailer, or you know, something like cut tail or something like that, anything that has inherent action, it's going to create a parachute effect where this bait wants to fall straight down. Okay, you've got that tail that's going to create that parachute action, that drag. It's going to fall straight down. With the jointed style trailers like this one, like the Razor Shadz, it's streamlined enough and it doesn't have that drag to where it actually wants to have a horizontal fall on the fall, and I think that gets you more bites this time of year. So because it doesn't have that drag, it falls kind of, you know, at this angle as opposed to just straight down. So glide is a really, really important thing to consider for, you know, flipping and pitching, you know, baits. There's some baits that will fall straight down, and there's some that will have a horizontal glide and actually glide into the cover. And that's the same thing for chatterbaits. I think it's a really important factor. So I like to use these jointed style trailers. Now, as far as tackle goes, it's all pretty much the same than all the other chatterbait fishing I'm doing. I use a 7.3 medium heavy Vursa series rod from Fitzgerald. I use a 7.2 to 1 gear ratio reel. This right here is the VLD 10. And then I use 15 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon. Chatterbaits are power fishing tactics. You don't have to go too crazy as far as light line. So 15 to 20 pound test. Red Label is my choice. Red Label is great because it's strong, but it's also a little less expensive. So that is the tackle for my chatterbaits. But overall, choosing the right style trailer for early spring is going to help you get more bites.
Are there times you're on the water and you're really curious what you're looking at with your electronics? Well, hey, after the video, go to the Fish the Moment website and check out our newest product, which is the Sonar Interpretation Guide. This guide was put together by Matt Steffen and Johnny Schultz to help you actually know what you're looking at. We have sonar images and we have detailed call outs so you know what you're actually looking at. Is it a log? Is it catfish? Is it gizzard shad? Shell beds, brush piles, fish in the brush piles, crappie. So hey, it's a pretty unique product. Go check it out along with our other products on the Fish the Moment websites. We have settings guides, we have our one-on-one lessons with any of our members from the Bass Fishing Declassified team, and also of course our famous map lake breakdowns by Matt, Johnny, or Randy Blockett. Hey, after the video, go to the Fish the Moment website, check it out, and find you a product that best suits you.
Today we're going to be talking about what I consider the most common chatterbait mistake that anglers make in the early springtime of the year. Give you guys some good tips and advice to help you catch some better fish over the next few months. You know, there is a lot of variables to fishing a chatterbait or a bladed jig in general. You know, bladed jig is sort of a or chatterbait is sort of a generic term for the bladed jig. There's a lot of different brands out there. We're going to be talking about the Jackhammer and the regular chatterbait today. Now, like I said, there's a lot of different variables that will determine the success you have on it. But from my point of view, in the early spring of the year, one of the biggest mistakes, probably the biggest mistake that anglers make, is they don't use the right color of a chatterbait. Color is extremely critical in the early springtime of the year. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they go to a shad pattern. Now, a shad pattern, I'm not saying it will not catch fish, but in the early spring, right before those fish start getting ready to bed, you do not want to use any type of a shad pattern. This is the 3/8 ounce Jackhammer. Most shad patterns have some combination of chartreuse clear with some type of a light colored skirt on it, designed to mimic some type of a shad for the most part. One of the things that you'll find about in the early spring is the bass really key on crawdads, because they're in the process, the big females are in the process of building their egg sacs, and they feed on crawdads heavily. That's why you want to use a crawdad pattern chatterbait, something like this. This is just the original chatterbait. I've got a green pumpkin skirt that I tried on it, and it's got a zoom speed craw off the back of it here. Now, if you go out and fish a shad pattern and a crawdad pattern, you're going to catch at least twice the amount of bass on a crawdad pattern. But the key on your crawdad pattern, guys, is to experiment specifically with different types of colors. Like I said, this is just the generic green pumpkin with the green pumpkin speed craw on it. But a lot of times I'll mix it up. I may tie the skirt and I'll put some orange in it. Sometimes if the water's dirty, I'll put more orange than green. Sometimes I'll put some dye on the tails. I'll put orange dye or chartreuse dye. I'm really wanting to match that water clarity. In general, water clarity is going to dictate the specific type and color of the crawdad pattern you need to use. Now in this situation with just the straight green pumpkin, this is more for a clear water environment. So if I'm fishing water visibilities that have like greater than 3 foot of visibility, the straight green pumpkin is going to be what I go to. But say that water visibility drops down to maybe like that 1 to 2 foot zone. That is the time I start adding secondary complementary colors to it. Like I said, the oranges, the chartreuses, maybe some reds. I experiment with dye, want to get a little bit, brighter look. Another important factor, guys, on color is the blade color in the spring. You do not want to use the chrome blade because, again, it keys the fish and makes them think it's a shad a little bit more. So always go to the dark colored blades, either a brown or a black. They're easy to change. If you don't have one, you can take a magic marker or fingernail polish and you can color them with any color you want. Sometimes I even take like fingernail polish and color the blade completely orange or red. But as long as you stay with the greens, the oranges, and reds in the early spring, it's going to add up to a lot more fish for you guys because they're really color sensitive during the pre-spawn. So give it a try, guys. Just put away your shad patterns for a little bit. They start coming into play in the post-spawn, like in late April and May, in June again. But for now, early spring, put on your crawdad patterns, and it's going to catch you some good fish. So we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you for watching today's video, guys. Let us know which one was your favorite tip. If not, please give us a like and subscribe to the Bass Fishing Declassified YouTube channel, and so you don't miss out on any upcoming content. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next time.